Welcome to Business Talk, presented in collaboration with the University of Rio Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, from the heart of southeastern Ohio at the University of Rio Grande TV studio. Our goals are simple: promote the University of Rio Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, as well as advocate local small business and their support organizations. More importantly, promote southeastern Ohio as a wonderful place to live, explore, and learn. There are many different ways you can find us. The University of Rio Grande Cable Access Channel 17, live online at blogtalkradio.com, and on YouTube if you are unable to catch our show live. Introducing our co-hosts, Jason Winters, Mike Thompson, Patrick Dengel. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Probably about 10 years ago at the Lawrence Economic Development Corporation, actually it was 16 years ago.
And she was a high school intern at that time, right?
Yes, she was. Now she's 24. But she was a dynamic lady who was involved with small businesses and worked with small businesses. As a matter of fact, wore some of the same kind of shoes that I did. And that was Andrea Leffingwell. Andrea has been involved in a number of different programs since the time that I met her, and right now she's a development specialist with Spectrum Outreach Services, which is located in several counties. And it's my pleasure to have Andrea come on our show. Andrea, welcome.
Thank you.
Care to share additional information about yourself?
Okay, well, since that time, and I'm glad you referred to me as the high school intern because that makes me feel real good. I have used the skills that I learned there at, actually I give a lot of credit to Pat Clonch in the Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce for giving me that opportunity years ago. And I had no idea at the time that I was learning to be someone who loved development. But I've worked with agencies in Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky. I built some programs that were great across all three states. And I now work with Spectrum Outreach, and I think it's because of a passion I have to work with families and people who are involved in the serious issue of addiction. So that's how I landed where I am today.
So tell us a little bit about Spectrum. What is Spectrum?
Spectrum provides services to a lot of the folks that get involved with Spectrum are court-ordered. Unfortunately, they've committed a crime. They have a...
Would they be called patients or clients?
I call them patients. I think sometimes we refer to them as clients. If they're receiving treatment, say they come for an assessment, they might be a client. But if they're referred for treatment, then I basically would refer to them as a patient. They get outpatient services. First offense, it's a lot of outpatient treatment. It's a lot of assessment, working with that person to just discover what their issue is. And if they're a second or third time offender, then you're pretty sure that they're going to need something longer term, something inpatient, something that helps them not only detox and get clean, but to survive, get some sober living skills so they can get back to a quality of life.
So what kind of offenses or what kind of addictions are we talking about?
The thing that we're seeing right now, shoplifting is... Every court in Lawrence County, I think, is full of people just committing the shoplifting offense or the theft, and that is to get things to sell in order to feed their drug habit because it needs to be a daily fix. It's not something that they can wait all month till they get a check for, even if they're receiving services or assistance with their income. It's something that has to be fed every day, and so they're desperate, and so they will walk in Walmart over and over and over again and steal something. And they get caught, and once they're caught, and go before the judge, then the judge wants to know why you're doing that, which 99% of the time it's because you have an addiction.
Yeah, I've looked at, well, not seriously looked at drugs, but I've heard of what things cost. I couldn't afford it on, my salary, at least paying my bills and everything. So it would take an additional income or some sort of supplement somewhere.
I guess I'm kind of naive. What kind of cost are you talking about?
I'm not sure, but I mean, there's pills that may be $20, $40, $80 a piece.
A piece.
And that you would need more than one a day.
Oh my goodness.
So,
And so we're talking about a variety of different drugs, is that correct?
Right. We're talking from prescription painkillers, heroin. We have folks that drink and then supplement that with pills, and they're easily attainable right now. You know, you can go just about anywhere and buy pills. It's one of the things is accessibility. That's a problem here in southern Ohio because it's a well-known fact that most of our counties have a generous supply, and they're brought down here from bigger cities because we buy them. And so it's kind of a run of things that keeps the business going here in some of the smaller counties. Is the addiction rate, it goes up, and then the traffic of the drug, grows in demand, and then it's the same factor as supply and demand everywhere else. If there's a demand for it, they'll bring it in here. That's where a lot of the State Highway Patrol, I think, is busy arresting people on the roads and finding out they're carrying it in here.
and there's other ways to get it too. I've had a few friends, and I think my parents had people possibly stop at the house, say, hey, could I use your phone or your bathroom or something? And they'll go through your cabinet to see if, they'll see it's an old person. Okay, they probably got a painkiller here or there, so I'll go in there. I gotta, use a restroom or something. Use some lame excuse, go in there and rifle through your stuff, and then take your painkillers. So there's other ways to do this too.
Boy, if someone came to my house, they would find aspirin. So I don't know how.
Yeah,
how
are
much
you want to OD on some laxative?
I only use that once in a while.
My daughter she watches out. My youngest daughter watches out for my parents. My dad broke his hip. My daughter put a sign on the front door, taped it to the storm door that said, "Popo Dave's pills were disposed of," and because she didn't want them to think he had left them there at the house after he was in recovery from the broken hip. She said someone will knock on the door, and if they read that sign, they'll just move on. So I think she was, I think she was dreaming, but I did like her idea, so that if it was just someone off the street that knew that they're elderly and that they'd had this issue and that there were probably pain pills in the house.
That's why people come in for home invasions a lot of times on these old people.
Yep.
Why are you going to beat up a 70-year-old guy? It's like, well, the guy probably has pills somewhere.
Right.
So is it prescription pills? One of the things that I had heard growing up is that marijuana is the gateway to drugs, and that if you started with marijuana, you obviously then would become an opium addict.
I thought it was the gateway to financial stability in Colorado.
Oh, well, especially for the government, yes.
Reefer madness.
Well, I'm definitely not a drug spokesperson, but I will say that I think marijuana's played a part in our country for years and years. Whether it's a gateway or whether access to it may lead to access to other things, would obviously be something that you could look at as a problem issue. Most people that use marijuana feel like it's a coping mechanism. It's something they do to relax, and they don't believe, and it's basically not addictive as far as the medical terminology goes, but it is a suppressant. It does make you feel relaxed.
Yeah, it's just like having a couple shots of whiskey.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of individuals that drink,
Right.
usually not on the job, but in a recreational sense, and they would probably not be considered addicts, and probably some of the
Yeah, but that's well known to be, well, not addict, but alcoholic
Right.
would be an addict.
Right,
But you don't call it that, you call it an alcoholic.
right, and because alcohol is a drug.
Right.
And consequently, there's also a number of individuals that use marijuana, but in a recreational sense.
Right. Drug and alcohol addiction, I guess if you want to refer to someone as an addict, it's controlling them. The alcohol and the drugs is controlling them. Most of the time they're not functional in the workplace or even maybe in their personal life because the alcohol or the drug has taken over that sense of responsibility or that kind of thing. But I don't claim to know how to assess someone to actually be able to refer to them as an addict. But when you come for an assessment at Spectrum Outreach, what they do is try to look into your past, your functionality. Are you going to work every day? Are you missing every Friday? Do you miss every Monday? That could be, sort of like an idea maybe that you have a problem. Even if you're controlling it over the weekend, it could lead to something that would make this assessment recommend treatment, which is then when you can pretty much consider yourself having a drug or alcohol problem if you've been referred for treatment.
And Spectrum Outreach Services was started by Robert Vincent.
Right. And I call him Bob, so I'll refer to him as Bob. Bob and Linda Vincent are a lovely couple, and they live in South Point. Bob was an alcohol and drug addict for several years when he was young, and he's been in recovery, I think, probably 20-some years now, and about 10 years ago, he started this program, and he wanted to help people like himself because he thought he knew a little bit better techniques to use with people. And obviously he did, because he's built a very successful business, and he bases it on, let's just help this addict however we can. Let's find the sources of, what's driving them. Let's work with them. The program is very successful, and unfortunately, because of the rate of addiction problems right now, our business is booming. And we're trying to grow it right now. We're trying to increase the number of services we can provide. But the end result is we want to help each individual addict become able to go back and live a normal life. And I don't know what normal is for sure, but basic sober living skills. They don't live sober. At the point they come to us and they have these troubles, they live addicted. So they have to almost learn a different behavior. They have to learn sober living skills. They have to know how to get up out of bed every morning, go to work, make money, support their family, gain back the trust of their family. Most of the time, family doesn't trust them. They've stolen from them. They've abused them, whatever, along with the addiction. So we want to give them back these basic sober living skills, and that then they can recover if they want to. It has to be from the person themselves. Mom and dad can call up, but it's got to be you. If you're the addict, it's got to be you.
That has to be the key, is the want. You can't be forced or ordered by the court or something and be successful. What would you say might be the difference between, and this would probably go to people's families, the difference between helping and enabling? There's a big difference, I think.
There's a huge difference, and I can almost testify to that. I have a 37-year-old daughter who's an addict, and I would say she started at age 17, and I would say at least for the first 5 years of her severe addiction, I gave her the $200 electric bill probably multiple times each month because I didn't want her electric to get turned off, and it never went to an electric bill, I can assure you. I don't think she ever had a home at that time, but at the beginning of this, what happens to a family is you buy into the fact that your daughter or your husband or your son cannot be this person that you read about in the news every morning. It just can't be. So you enable them by supporting them. Not necessarily, I never gave her money and said, now go buy you some crack cocaine and smoke it.
Right.
But I gave her money because she said, Mom, I can't, I need
I'm short
stuff.
this month. I can't pay the bills.
Right. So I was an enabler. And after several years of that, I discovered, and I went for help. I went to get counseling and to learn how to deal with her. And the first thing they said is, you have to say no to her. You're not helping her. So to help her, you should suggest treatment. You should suggest that she get help, and then you should give her even information about getting help, but don't give her money.
Mm-hmm.
And
So at Spectrum, do you work with the individual as well as their family?
Sure. They do a lot of work with the families. A new project that we're looking at is some long-term recovery housing, and it is actually focused on the reunification with the family, giving the family skills to deal with your sober living as well as you. So before you ever leave this programming, you have regained the trust of your family, regained your self-esteem as an addict, as a recovering addict, and then you can provide for your family. So what you do is you build yourself back up to be a quality member of that family, whether it be the mom, the dad, the son, the daughter, whatever. You the reunification with the family can be done without their distrust. So that's part of the programming.
And is there two different kinds of programs that you have? One for the men, one for the women?
We do. We have the Linda Center, which is focused totally on women with small children or women with babies born addicted. And they come into this program, they bring their baby with them. And it's all focused on basic parenting skills for the addict that's had the child, and then they learn to give their baby a bath there. They learn all these things while they're learning their sober living skills. And this way they have an opportunity to keep their baby, and they're case managed and they're monitored. And so the baby is cared for by the staff almost as much as by the parent, in order to have, in order to get the comfort of knowing that the baby is recovering from their addiction, being supervised.
Now, you said something earlier when we were talking. It was surprising. You said, I think that it was, I don't know if you say against the law, but if you have a baby and is addicted to something, it's a crime?
They call in children's services. And if they deem that this baby has been neglected at birth or abused based on the level of its addiction, sometimes they get in trouble. It's considered a crime, or they get threatened with their baby being removed from their home. And so they can choose. Sometimes if they can get the right social worker involved, they can get referred to the Linda Center, and the judge or the children's services folks will go to bat for them and say, we'll put you there, and we'll get a report in 3 months. If you're doing good with your baby, then we'll monitor you, but we'll give you the opportunity to keep your child.
So she can take the child in with her.
There's a baby
Okay.
bed and an
Okay.
adult bed in the same area, so they get to parent their child.
Yeah, that was a strange thing I saw. You ever seen The Wonderful World or something of the Whites? And it's a family, I think, in West Virginia. It's on the border of West Virginia, Kentucky. You've seen it?
It's one of those
It's reality.
reality television shows.
Oh, it's a movie about their family. But this, it was just crazy. This girl went in to the hospital, had the child. The child goes back to the nursery, and she goes and cuts up a pill on the nightstand of the hospital thing and does the drugs there. I was like, and then she wonders why the baby is being threatened to be taken away. Like, well, that goes back to my other thing. These people the addicts don't think like we do. Their reasoning process and everything is not like us. So you cannot put our thought process on to these people. They think differently.
Well, let me ask another question. I know that just from our little conversation here, we're talking about addicts who have financial problems. They're stealing to support their habits. I'm sure that this counseling service is not cheap. Who's funding the treatment and rehabilitation of these individuals?
Well, the taxpayers, I would say a lot of it would fall back on the fact that they're getting assistance. They're getting a medical card. And some of the treatment is obviously paid for by their medical card if they're eligible for one. If they're not, I'll be honest, at Spectrum, they're very seldom turned away for any reason. And that's because Bob and Linda Vinson have such a heart for it. They get people, they find some way to help everyone who comes through the door. And the recovery housing that we're just talking about, that would give them some long-term help, really works on their financial structure, like the things they've messed up. Maybe they owe a lot of child support, they've gotten themselves in financial trouble, they can't find a job. So part of the recovery housing or the longer-term plan is to get them back on track, to get them working, to get child support being taken out of their check, to get them back to where they can live responsibly. But funding for these programs come from all different levels, from the federal government to the state, and then obviously individual. If you have insurance, some organizations take your insurance up to whatever they will pay. So there are sources. Unfortunately, what these folks need to recover is long-term, which is not paid for by any of those things. And one of the things that recovery housing we hope will will be funded by the states so that folks can get back on their feet and go back to work and then come off of this realm of public assistance. So
They have
it's hopeful.
also shown through statistics that even though, let's assume you've successfully helped 1 out of 10 individuals, the amount of money that they put back into the coffers, the Social Security, the taxes, things of that nature, outweighs the cost that it would be for society to maintain that individual. So financially, it is it's an investment of people to get back into society and to earn.
Right.
Well, I'm sure if you compare it with the cost of the 20-year incarceration,
Yes,
it's a win-win situation.
yes. And that's why there is much money in there. Most individuals find it hard to believe that 1 out of 10 will be successful the first year, because it is a long drawn process for individuals who have had for many years addiction problems.
Right. Any recovery and into sober living, working, really quality of life, folks, is not 28 days or 90 days. It's more like 3 years to 10 years to get them back on track. And it's a sad number when you said that 1 out of 10. When I started doing research for this job, I was so surprised to find out that people are pretty happy with a 10% success rate in a lot of programs across the state of Ohio. I'm more of an overachiever. I like that 75% successful kind of rate. I'm a developer, so without that, I'm not really doing a good job. So when I started looking at that, I thought, well, I'm mistaken. So I go state by state and I try to look at their statistics. And
It's
people,
very similar.
It
Yeah,
is.
that's right.
And the jails are overcrowded. The second
That's right.
time offender is within a year of the first offense. And sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's about the same, but they're before that same judge, and now they're going to the county jail and facing prison time and having to get a court-appointed attorney, and it goes through this vicious cycle of where if you could keep them grounded into a project where they're busy, they're going to group and they're going to counseling and they're working in a supported job and they have all the support system that they need, then I think they have a better chance at recovery. Like I said, though, it's that individual guy who wants to recover. He wants to do well. Maybe he's got 2 kids and he wants to get back in their life. He's motivated. So if he has the support system, he might be able to make it. But I'll be honest, the ones that go to 28 days or 90 days, and then I call it ejected back into the place that they were living with access to the drugs, his chances of survival are so low, I'm sure they're not 10%. They're lower than that. So it's a vicious cycle, and it's gotten crazy in this country. It's gotten crazy, and then in our counties, I always thought Lawrence County was the sweetest, safest, lovingest county, and I sat on the grand jury one year, and I said, "Are you kidding? All that happened in my backyard, And I had, it was it's kind of overwhelming." And then when they talked about it being 90% of everything that was being committed and done was drug related. And so you kind of see this drug issue creeping up. And then you turn on the television every morning and read the newspaper and somebody's stabbed and somebody's shot and somebody's robbed and and you just close your eyes and know that it's drug related. Mm-hmm. So
well, I know that Scioto, Gallia, Vinton,
Jackson.
Lawrence.
A lot of the counties are.
That is right. Let me ask you this, because addiction can be a variety of different things, ranging from alcohol. What do you think of an individual that is studying to have his PhD, but he loves goats so much that for years all of us have been saying you're addicted to having goats? What would you tell that individual?
Well, is he going to milk these goats and start a dairy?
He just loves.
He's going to give them to his coworker and say, "Have at it."
Well, I don't know. The goat industry is within itself very interesting, and I've learned a lot about it recently from a friend of my husband's. And but would I say he's addicted to the goats? I'm not sure that if unless he's dysfunctional at work and letting the goats ride in his car and maybe even bathing the goats in his bathtub, I would say give him a break.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think only when it affects your bottom line, your income, and you get into a lot of arguments within your family, and it's hard to hold a job. And
If
and
it
affects-
drives you to drinking, then you have a problem.
There you go.
But let's take goats out of the equation. What kind of drugs are we talking about?
I don't know that I could quote specifics. I do know that pills are the trade. We are even experiencing a lot in Lawrence County. They trade Suboxone, which is their drug they're going to get for treatment, and then they're cutting the Suboxone into and selling half of it and only taking half of it to keep it in their system, and then the other person, they're buying it on the street because it does continue to let you function without, say you're addicted to pain pills. If you can get a little bit of Suboxone, maybe you can make it till the next time you can score a pain pill. So I would say pain pills are huge. I would say that's great big. In Huntington, West Virginia right now, the drug of choice is crack cocaine. It's cheap, trades easily. You can get some for $30 or you can get some for $150, and depending upon what money you've got, it's easily accessible. Right there in Lawrence County, I would probably say from observing and listening to the discussions that they have in most of the organizations down there, it's pills. Just any kind of a pain pill. A Loratab is a great score anytime. Just anything they can trade.
Okay, so suppose someone is using those drugs for several years, who have gotten into that lifestyle of stealing and lifestyle of doing things that we socially would feel would be inappropriate, and so they come into Spectrum. They start their search. What are you hoping will happen that they won't go back into that environment?
It's a behavior change. It's basically, when I say sober living skills, that's what they're all trying to gain from working with a counselor or having outpatient services or even going to AA. That's what you're looking, or NA. You're looking for a behavior change for your life. So you want somebody to help you and support you when you're craving this pain pill. You want to be able to call up someone. That's a lot of the AA and NA structure has your sponsor or your peer folks who you can talk to. And I think a lot of structure is in just behavior change, because they're not going to stop craving the drug of choice, in 6 weeks, that you're going to counseling. So what you've got to do is instill in them, if you want to make this change, these are some things you can do to make the change.
And you seem to have recognized that, and that's why you're getting into the long-term rehab facilities?
Right, because we can detox, they can get detoxed, and they can go to outpatient or even 28-day programs. But can they maintain sobriety is unlikely. I mean, the odds are against them. So this longer-term recovery housing that we want to look at, and it's supported. There are groups there. The meetings are there. It's on site. You don't have to have a car to get there. We help you with jobs and gaining back these sober living skills, so that when you leave there, you have already those in place. You don't have to go out and seek them for yourself. So it's basically just a continuum of care from the treatment. So you get off the drugs, your body is clean, but your brain is not. So then your brain starts these behavior changes and you learn to live sober. And that's the goal, this latest project that we have going.
Well, we really hope that you have great success with that. I know that you have facilities, or you have services in Jackson, Gallipolis, South Point, Ashland,
Ironton.
and Ironton,
Yeah.
and Huntington. You're involved with some things.
Well, we get a lot of Huntington and Ashland folks over in our Lawrence County jails, so we end up with them in some of our programming.
Hey, we're speaking with Andrea Leffingwell with the Spectrum Outreach Services. Executive Director is Robert Vinson. And how can people get in touch with you?
The Ironton office is the main office. We have a website, spectrumoutreach.org, I believe, and you can look up that number. It's accessible. It's 740-532-3767.
532
3767.
3767.
Yeah, and we have a Gallipolis office and a Jackson office, and I don't know those numbers by heart, but you can look them up. They're there, and you get hold of anybody and tell them what you need or what you're looking for. They can put you in the right direction.
Okay. Well, Andrea, thank you very much for
You're welcome. Thank you.
coming on Business Talk.
Thank you
Next
for
week
having
we
me.
have a really special guest. This individual is going to be talking about a service he developed in Gallia County, a pet
Crematory?
crematory.
We're not going to be talking about goats next week.
No goats.
No goats.
Unless
They're pets.
That's right. I'm Patrick.
I'm Jason.
I'm Andy.
I'm Mike. Thanks for watching.
Have a great evening.